I never thought I'd find myself in a situation like this. I mean, who does? My name's Jake and I was married to Emily for about 10 years. We had our ups and downs, sure, but I always thought we had something solid, until I didn't. It all started about 6 months ago, right around the time I was recovering from losing my leg below the knee. I'd always been active, played sports, went jogging, did my best to stay fit. But after the accident, everything changed. I had to adapt to life with a prosthetic, which was a mess at first, but I was getting better. Still, it was tough, and Emily was supposed to be my rock. At first, I thought she was supportive. She even helped me with rehab exercises, and she was patient when I struggled with balance or pain. But slowly, I started noticing things that didn't sit right. Small stuff at first. She'd go out for business meetings more often, and her phone would be glued to her hand, always silenced, always hidden when I came into the room. She became more irritable, snapping at me when I asked simple questions about her schedule. I brushed it off, blamed myself for overthinking. Maybe I was just stressed about my recovery, or maybe I was reading too much into her behavior. Then came the oddest thing. I noticed her staying late at work more and more, even on weekends. She'd say she was closing up or taking care of some reports, but I had a gut feeling that wasn't the full story. One night, I decided to check our home security system. I'd been suspicious lately, and I figured I might find some proof to put my mind at ease. I logged into the app on my phone, and that's when I saw it. A series of clips from the clinic where I'd been going for physical therapy and prosthetic fittings. The footage was recent, really recent, and it showed Emily coming into the clinic after hours, sneaking into the back, staying for hours. I couldn't believe what I was seeing. I replayed the clips over and over, trying to tell myself it was nothing, that maybe she was just visiting someone or returning a forgotten item. But then she was there with a tall guy with dark hair, acting way too familiar. They kissed in the corridor, and I saw her hand slip into his pocket briefly. My stomach dropped. The footage wasn't just a casual visit or a friendly check-in, it was clearly more than that. They were meeting alone in a place where I thought I was safe, vulnerable in my own home and in my own body. I felt a mix of shock and rage. How could she do this to me? After everything I was going through, she was out there screwing around with my prosthetic specialist, Eric. I later found out his name was. He was supposed to be helping me. I never liked him much, honestly. He always seemed a little too eager, a little too smarmy in his manner, but I never suspected he'd be part of this. Seeing her with him, touching him, kissing him, made my blood boil. I wanted to confront her right then and there, but I knew I needed to think, to plan my next move carefully. The next few days were a roller coaster. I kept replaying the footage, trying to figure out what it all meant. Was she really cheating? How long had it been going on? Why? I felt betrayed on every level, by her, by myself. For not noticing sooner, by the idea that someone I trusted could do this behind my back. I felt hurt, angry, and surprisingly, a deep sense of numbness, like I was watching my life unravel in slow motion. I wanted to believe she was innocent or that maybe I was mistaken, but deep down, I knew the truth. She wasn't who I thought she was, and everything was about to change. The day I finally confronted her started like any other, except I knew I wasn't going to get the answers I wanted. Emily was in the kitchen, pouring herself a glass of wine. She looked up at me, her eyes narrowing just a little, sensing something was off. I didn't say anything at first. I just pulled out my phone, showed her the footage, every clip, every secret moment I had caught on camera. Her face twisted into a mask of defiance and annoyance. "What the hell is this, Jake?" she snapped, her voice sharp and dismissive. "You've been spying on me. Are you serious? This is what you've been doing while I was trying to support you." I felt my stomach tighten. I'd expected her to deny it, to spin some bullshit story about how she's been busy, stressed, or maybe even accusing me of paranoia. But she didn't. Instead, she looked furious, like I'd just accused her of murder. "You're crazy," she spat. "You're just jealous because I spend time at the clinic with Eric. He's just helping me with your prosthetic. It's nothing." Her voice was dripping with attitude, like she thought I was stupid for even doubting her. "That's not what I saw," I said, trying to keep my voice steady. "You're sneaking out after hours, you're kissing him, you're touching him like it's nothing. How is that nothing, Emily? Tell me, how is what I saw just innocent?" She rolled her eyes and scoffed. You always think the worst. You're so damn insecure. I do my best to support you, and this is how you thank me. By accusing me of cheating. Get real. Eric's helping me because I asked him to. He's a professional, not some guy I'm cheating with. I was boiling inside. I felt like my world was crumbling. My mind raced. How long has this been going on? Weeks, months, and how many times had lied to me directly? I could feel the anger building, but I also felt a deep, crushing sadness. That someone I loved, someone I trusted, could betray me like this while I was just trying to come to terms with what I lost, with who I am now. I saw enough, I finally said, voice hoarse. You're done. Whatever this is, you and Eric, you're done. I don't want to see you, talk to you, or hear from you anymore. Her eyes flashed venomously. Fine. If that's how you want it, then go ahead and be a hero. But you're seriously overreacting. You're just bitter because I don't need you anymore. I don't need some crippled guy feeling sorry for himself. Grow up, Jake. That was the moment I realized I'd hit a wall. Her words cut deep, worse than I thought they would. It wasn't just the betrayal. I felt humiliated, like I'd been punched in the gut. I'd always knew deep down that there was tension, maybe even contempt in her attitude lately. But hearing her say she didn't need me, that I was just some burden, was a new level of pain. I left the house that afternoon and didn't look back. I went to a friend's place, sat there in silence, staring at the wall. I felt numb, but also a fiery resolve building inside me. I wasn't just going to let her walk all over me. Not after everything. I needed to process this, to figure out what was next. I kept replaying the footage, thinking about what it all meant, about her, about Eric, about us. It was the kind of betrayal that's hard to come back from, and I knew I had to decide whether I was going to fight for this marriage or finally accept that it was over. And honestly, I was leaning toward the latter. The lies, the sneaking around, the way she looked at me like I was just an obstacle. Yeah, this was the end of the line. After that confrontation, I spent days just wandering around in a fog. I couldn't sleep, couldn't eat right. Every time I closed my eyes, I saw her with him, kissing, touching, the way she looked at him like he was the only thing that mattered. It was like a punch to the gut every time. I kept asking myself how I missed the signs, how I let her get so close and betray me like that. Honestly, part of me wondered if I'd been blind, if I was just too damn weak to see what was right in front of my face. But then I realized I wasn't just hurt, I was furious. That rage simmered beneath everything, and I knew I had to do something about it. I couldn't just sit around and let her toss me aside like I was nothing. I had to fight back, even if that meant planning my revenge. Yeah, I know that sounds petty or even pathetic to some, but I was done being the victim. I wanted her to feel what I felt, betrayed, humiliated, like she'd lost her damn mind. That's when I started really thinking about how to make her pay for this. First, I needed more evidence. I knew she was still sneaking around, so I decided to install more cameras, this time outside the house, around her car, and in the garage. I wanted to be sure. Couldn't have her coming home, pretending nothing happened, and sneaking her lies past me. I also started digging into her phone, her social media, and her emails. I'd always suspected she was a liar, but now I was digging deeper, trying to find some proof that she'd been lying about everything. Meanwhile, I kept my own feelings in check, mostly because I didn't want her to think I was broken or desperate. But every time I saw her face or heard her voice, I fought back the urge to scream or cry. It was pure agony knowing she'd been screwing around behind my back, and I'd never see it coming. I'd trusted her. I'd built a life with her. And she threw it all away for some guy who, honestly, I'd never liked much in the first place. One day, I caught her slipping her phone out of her purse and trying to hide it in her pocket when I walked into the room. That was the final straw. I snatched it and unlocked it with her passcode, something I'd never bothered to do before. What I found was worse than I expected. Texts between her and Eric, explicit messages, plans to meet up again, even some photos she'd sent him. The messages were full of lies. She told me she was working late, that she was just friends with him. Yeah, right, it was like a slap to the face. I felt sick. The betrayal was complete. I knew then that I couldn't stay quiet anymore. I had enough. I wanted her to see I wasn't powerless, that I was going to fight for my dignity, even if it meant tearing her world apart. I started drafting a plan, how to confront her again, how to reveal everything, how to make her realize she'd pushed me to the edge. That's when I decided I'd give her a taste of her own medicine, to show her what it feels like to be betrayed, to be lied to be discarded like garbage. I didn't want petty revenge, though. I just needed her to see that her actions had consequences. I needed her to understand that she couldn't just walk over me like I was nothing. I had to make her hurt, not with violence, but with the truth, raw, ugly, and undeniable. And then I'd decide whether I wanted to salvage what was left or finally cut her loose for good. I was done being the fool in this story. It was time for her to face the fallout of lies. The night I decided to execute my plan, I felt like I was walking on a razor's edge. I knew I had enough dirt on her now to make her squirm. I'd gathered enough evidence to blow up her little world, but I also knew that once I started, there was no going back. Still, I couldn't just let her get away with it, not after everything. I had to make her see the damage she'd done, and I wanted her to know I wasn't some pushover anymore. So I set everything in motion late that night. I arranged a meeting, pretending I wanted to talk. Really, I just wanted her to come over so I could confront her face to face. I wanted her to see my anger, my pain, and my resolve. I told her I had something important to tell her, something she needed to hear. She was hesitant at first, trying to act nonchalant, but I could tell she was nervous underneath that bitchy attitude of hers. She showed up at my place, acting like she still owned me, but I was ready. When she stepped inside, I didn't bother beating around the bush. I threw everything at her, her texts, the photos, the video clips. I read her some of the explicit messages, showed her the pictures I'd found. She tried to deny it at first, scoffing, saying I was stalking, paranoid, or crazy. But I just kept going. I told her how I saw her sneaking around, how Eric was just another guy she was betraying me with, how I knew she'd been lying about everything. Her face turned red with anger, then with shock. She looked like she'd been caught in a lie she couldn't spin her way out of. Her reaction was classic, defensive, bitchy, and full of bullshit. She started crying, but I didn't buy it. She was crying because she was caught, because her perfect little facade was crumbling. I told her she had no right to be upset when she'd been the one cheating, lying, and disrespecting everything we built. She yelled at me, called me possessive, paranoid, and even accused me of ruining her life because I was jealous and controlling. She tried to turn it around, make me feel guilty for invading her privacy, but I wasn't buying her act anymore. That night was the turning point. I saw her for what she really was, a selfish, manipulative woman who didn't give a damn about me or what I was going through, and I decided I'd had enough. I told her this wasn't just about her cheating anymore. It was about respect, about how she'd thrown everything away for a guy who didn't deserve her. I told her that I was done being her fool, her doormat, her punching bag. I told her I was leaving, and that I'd take everything I could, my dignity, my pride, and whatever was left of our life together. As she stormed out that night, screaming and swearing, I felt a strange sense of relief mixed with heartbreak. I knew it was over, not just because of the affair, but because I finally saw her for who she was. I realized that I deserved better, someone who wouldn't lie, cheat, or betray me. It hurt like hell to admit that, but I also felt a weight lifted. I was finally taking control of my life, no matter how much it hurt. I knew I'd need time to heal, to rebuild myself after this, but for the first time in months I felt like I had a shot at moving forward. In the days that followed, everything changed. I moved out of the house, took my things, and set up a new place where I could breathe without the constant feeling of betrayal hanging over me. It was the hardest thing I'd ever done, to leave behind the life I thought I knew, but I knew staying would only mean more pain. I had to start over, even if it was just in small steps. Every morning I woke up with a mixture of relief and heartbreak. Relief that I finally knew the truth, heartbreak because I'd lost someone I once loved and trusted. I spent a lot of time reflecting on what had happened, trying to piece together how I'd let it go so far. How I'd been so blind to her lies, so blind to the way she'd treated me like I was invisible. But mostly I focused on myself. I went to therapy, started working out again, and tried to rebuild my confidence. I knew I couldn't change what she did, but I could change how I reacted to it. I realized that the biggest lesson here was about boundaries, what I would accept and what I wouldn't. At the same time, I couldn't help but feel a spiraling anger whenever I thought about Eric, that bastard, helping my wife cheat on me while I was vulnerable, trying to fix my body and my life. I wanted to confront him to make him see what he'd done, but I knew that wouldn't really fix anything. Still, I kept a close eye on him, just in case. I found out he'd been fired from the clinic shortly after everything came out, probably because I wasn't the only one who found out what kind of guy he was. That was some small comfort, knowing he'd lose his reputation over this. What really hit me hard, though, was how Emily tried to stay in touch. She called, sent messages, even showed up at my new place a few times, trying to guilt me into taking her back. Her words were full of lies, talking about how she still loved me, how she made a mistake, and that she'd change. But I could see through it now. That girl was manipulative to the end. I told her to leave me alone, that I didn't want her apologies or her lies anymore. I was done. I had to protect what little self-respect I had left. Looking back, I realize I've learned a lot from this mess. I learned that trust is fragile and it can shatter in a second. That betrayal cuts deeper than any physical wound. And that sometimes the only way to move forward is to cut ties entirely. I also learned that revenge, no matter how satisfying it feels in the moment, isn't about hurting others. It's about reclaiming your dignity and making sure the person who hurt you understands they can't get away with it. So here I am, still healing, still figuring out what's next. I don't know if I'll ever fully trust again, but I know I'll be okay. I've started piecing my life back together, one step at a time. And I want anyone going through something similar to know this. Don't wait around for someone to fix what they broke. Take control, face the truth, and always remember that you deserve honesty, loyalty, and respect. If someone betrays you, it's not the end. It's just the start of a new chapter. Now, looking back, I realize that this whole ordeal has been one of the toughest tests of my life, emotionally, mentally, physically. I've learned that betrayal doesn't just destroy trust, it shatters the very foundation of what you thought was real. And the worst part, you can't really prepare for the gut punch of discovering someone you loved and trusted has been lying to you all along. I used to think I was strong, but this experience proved I was stronger than I believed, strong enough to walk away from the woman I thought I knew, to face my own pain, and to start rebuilding from the ashes. One thing I've come to accept is that forgiveness isn't always about the other person. Sometimes, it's about forgiving yourself for staying too long or for not seeing the signs sooner. I refuse to let her betrayal define me, but I also won't forget what happened. I've learned to guard my heart more carefully, to listen to the red flags, and to trust my instincts. No one should have to go through what I did, but if it happens, I want others to know that there's life after betrayal. There's healing, growth, and a chance to find happiness again. I've realized that revenge, when done for the right reasons, isn't about hurting someone back. It's about reclaiming your power, about showing yourself that you're worth more than the lies and betrayal. I didn't do anything dramatic or destructive. I simply took my life back, piece by piece, and refused to let her take that away from me. I learned to stand my ground, to prioritize my well-being, and to believe that I deserve honesty and respect, no matter what. To anyone reading this who might be going through something similar, know that you are not alone. It hurts like hell in the beginning, and the betrayal can make you feel like you're falling apart. But it gets better, it really does. You'll find strength you never knew you had. You'll discover new parts of yourself, parts that aren't defined by the pain but by your resilience. And someday you'll look back and realize that this experience, painful as it was, made you stronger, wiser, and more aware of what you truly deserve. So I'll leave it at that. Life goes on, and sometimes the biggest lessons come from the hardest falls. I've learned to trust myself again, to cherish my independence, and to never settle for less than the truth. Because in the end, that's all anyone really needs: honesty, respect, and someone who stands by you, not just in words, but in actions. And I know now that I am capable of walking away from what's broken and building something better from the ruins.